Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's journal entry. This week's journal entry is inspired by a challenge that my mom is doing. She started a 30-day challenge. Actually, hold on. For those of you that are not watching the YouTube recording, I have my knuckles. I'm doing January, February, March, April. Do you know that trick? You can tell how many days there are in a month by your knuckles. Anyways, there are 30 days in April. So a 30-day journal challenge where she gets a prompt each day and journals on it. I did not sign up for this because I know myself and 30 days sounded like way too much. Hence why I created a 5-day journal challenge. But the prompt that she got the other day really, really intrigued me. It actually stumped me. I didn't know how to answer it. And even in my journal entry, I remember stalling and answering the actual question and actual prompt. But let me get my journal for you. Is it crazy that I literally am opening up my journal? I open up my soul for you guys. Okay, where is it? Here we go. So the journal prompt is, when was a time that I said I was fine, but really wasn't? Or a time that I wasn't fine and I said so? And what would have happened if I told the truth? I wrote about both scenarios. And now that I have journaled through it, I'm thinking of a million times that I've said that I'm fine. And I actually think I've been doing it my whole life. I think that it's normal. I think it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's ingrained in our culture almost, where when you run into someone and they ask how you're doing, I'm fine. How are you? I'm good. How are you doing? Right? Like, it just is what it is. And like, when you grow up experiencing that, it's just what you do. Right? I don't know. I don't know if it's normal for people to respond to how are you with like what's actually going on. I'm very curious. And if you do, please reach out via my Instagram DMs or Facebook Messenger, wherever you know how to reach me, and let me know, because I would love to hear that. But when I was first starting to think, I was like, my whole life I've been saying I'm fine. And it's just been a default. And I think still, especially in an impromptu situation, like where I'm randomly bumping into somebody, or like in a public situation, I still definitely just say, I'm fine. And it's funny because the two examples I'm about to share with you are not in my relationship. But in my marriage, there were so many times where he had asked me, actually, not so many times. He should have asked me more. And I should have spoken up more. But there were times where he did say, like, how are you? Or what's going on? And I would just say, I'm fine. Right. And clearly I wasn't. And I needed to take time for myself. But the two examples that did come to my mind first and foremost are examples with friends. So a time that I didn't tell the truth was when my friend Coley visited me. So she came over and hold on one second. I need to plug in my computer charger. Okay, so a time that I didn't tell the truth. My friend Coley was visiting. It was just Griffin and I at the time. I was still in my marriage, but my husband at the time wasn't home. And so we were just hanging out. And Coley asked me if I had wanted more kids. And I remember it feeling like time had stopped. I said, um, you know how you start a sentence with that? I was just trying to like buy more time so that I could find the words to say, right? The truth was that I was really struggling personally and in my marriage, but I hadn't opened up to Coley about any of I don't even think I opened up to anyone besides my family at that point. And I did know that I wanted more kids, but at the moment that she asked me that question, I wanted to say yes because I knew that I wanted kids, but I didn't know if it would be with my partner at the time, my husband at the time. And that was the first time I ever had a thought like that. I hadn't I hadn't ever thought about splitting up from my husband at that point, but that was my natural reaction to her question. And that thought made me choke up, realizing what it meant. And also knowing that I would cry, sharing more of that, all of that with Coley. And so I avoided it completely. And I just said, yes, I would like to have more kids. That's it. And we have a good friendship. And I've opened up to her since that time. And she is somebody that I confide in. But thinking back, if I were able to have been vulnerable in that instance, I would have opened myself up to more support. I would have lightened the load on my back, right? I wouldn't have been carrying all of those emotions on my own, and it would have felt good to talk about it. And I wouldn't have had answers, but I would have gotten an outside perspective, and it would have been healing, and it would have strengthened our friendship. And I know Coley, being the person that she is, would have been such a huge support system for me. Looking back, I do wish that I was more vulnerable in that situation, but it just encourages me to use the opportunity now when people ask me how I'm doing, and if I am struggling, and if I do like have emotions when they ask me a certain question, to share it, no matter what emotions I'm feeling. A time that I did tell the truth was when I was talking to my friend Ashley about when Griffin came back from his dad's and how anxious I was and how it was about to happen all over again the following month, because Griffin was with his dad in October for Griffin's birthday, and then he had him for Thanksgiving the following month. And you guys know all about the sleep issues. I felt like I had finally gotten him into somewhat of a routine again, which really messes with my mental health. And then I just had so much anxiety knowing that he was going to be uprooted again in like 2 more weeks or something. And she reached out and said she knew that I was struggling and that she was here. And I opened up, and we often leave voice memos to each other. And I cried, and I just like shared how I was feeling, and it felt really good. And our friendship has gotten so much stronger because she knows me, right? She knows my struggles. She knows how I'm feeling. And she can also relate because she was a single mom. And so she has experience going through what I'm going through, like exactly. And so that feels really good because being a single mom with a toddler, but not just that, I left my husband when my son was 9 or 10 months old. Like that's a pretty unique situation. And having somebody that can relate to that feels really validating. And having Ashley and being able to open up and feeling okay and comfortable speaking up has really made me want to be more genuine in all of my relationships. I ended this journal entry saying, and I remember just feeling like so bland. I don't know if that's the opposite of what you were thinking I was going to say. I remember ending these entries craving connection, feeling so good about how I feel when I do open up, which starts with being truthful to ourselves, of understanding how we feel, what it means, what we need, but then opening up to people, it's scary. It puts you in a vulnerable situation, but it just feels so good. And it's just something that I want to intentionally start doing more of. I do think that it will be not necessarily off-putting, but I think it will surprise some people because, like I started off saying, it's just not expected, right? We expect to hear the normal responses, right? Like when we go in a grocery store, I remember going into a store with my mom when I was younger, and she would bump into someone that she went to high school with. And a conversation was always the same. It was, hey, how are you? And then they talked about what they were up to, like one or two things about their family. And then it was, well, see you soon, or see you around, right? And then I bumped into one of my best friends from high school the other day, and it was like the exact same. It was, hey, oh my gosh, it's been so long. How have you been? And we chit-chatted a little bit. We exchanged a little bit of personal stuff, and then off we went. And I'm like, granted, we're in a grocery store. It's not like I'm going to dump everything about my life. But I think that there are small ways that we can share more of who we are and what we're going through in a way that can really strengthen the connections that we do have. And I'm excited to do that. I feel really empowered to do that. I think I've shared with you before. I've at the very least shared snippets of this when we have a guest speaker on on the podcast. But I have this list of new beliefs that I want to have and I'm instilling in myself. And the very first one is the message of today. It says, when I speak up, I allow my relationships to strengthen. And that is the basis of what I have been working on the past 2 years, of honoring how I'm feeling and then not being afraid to speak up, especially if it's a quote unquote negative emotion. And what I mean by negative is I used to feel like feeling sad or bad or frustrated, or I should get my emotions wheel out. Still learning more than the basic terms, or fear, stress, anything like that. I didn't want to like talk about it or like put that on anybody else. But I feel like because of that, I often had very surface level friendships, but no more. And I'm very excited for how that's going to feel and the connections that I'm going to have. So I'm going to ask you to journal about times that you have shared with someone when you actually were, when they asked you, how are you? And you actually were able to open up and share what was going on and how that felt. But then also a time when they asked you how you were and you said, I'm fine, even though you might not have been, and what would have happened if you did tell the truth. That was such an eye-opening experience for me in my journal entry, and I hope that it is for you too. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.